This bread is 4,000 years old. Someone just ate the recipe. It still works. The exact same recipe, the exact same bread, 4,000 years later, and bread is just the beginning. Today we are looking at 5 ancient foods that survived thousands of years, and what they say about every single person who ever fed someone they loved. In your hands, a loaf sits hard as stone, dark as coal, older than any name you have ever been taught to remember. It does not look like food anymore, but it was baked by 2 hands just like yours, in a fire just like yours. Before the first city had walls, before the first king had a name, someone was already feeding someone else, and that has never stopped. We think of the past as silence, ash, as distance, but the past left food behind, and food is the least silent thing there is. Some of what they ate is gone forever, lost the way a voice goes, and the last person who heard it finally dies. But some of it survived, buried, sealed, written in clay, pressed into stone, passed from mouth to mouth, across 4,000 unbroken years. This is not a story about history. This is a story about hunger and a stubborn, quiet, human refusal to let a good meal be forgotten by time. Story 1. Emmer wheat bread, Egypt, 2000 BCE. Egypt, 2,000 years before the birth of any calendar most people know. A baker pressed emmer wheat into a flat and heavy round. Emmer was rough grain, unsoft, not white, not the kind that rises easy, but it fed a kingdom, and it fed the dead. When a person died in Egypt, bread went with them, sealed inside the tomb, left there in the dark for the long journey ahead. The dry air of the desert did what no living person asked it to do. It kept the loaves whole, intact, almost untouched by time. Archaeologists opened those tombs and found the bread still sitting there, waiting, as if the meal had only just been interrupted and never resumed. One loaf lasted 4,000 years. That is not just survival, that is devotion, the kind you feel when you leave food out for someone you are afraid to lose. Somewhere, in that dry silence, the bread held its shape, the way memory holds a face, not perfect, not alive, but still there, still offering something. The recipe used emmer wheat, water, wild yeast, salt, and fire, nothing else. And when modern bakers tried it, the bread came out real. Not perfect, not light, not what we would call good, but real, dense, and deeply connected to something most food has long since forgotten. That is the first shock of ancient food. It is not only that it survived, it is that it still feels human. Story 2. Ninkasi's beer, Sumer, 1800 BCE. Sumer, 1800 years before the Common Era. Someone composed a hymn not to a god of war, not to a king, but to beer. The hymn was called the Hymn to Ninkasi, and it was both a prayer and a recipe, the most ancient double meaning in all of food. It was pressed into clay tablets, fired hard, buried, found again, and then handed to a brewery, which made the beer exactly as described. Ninkasi beer was thick, made from bapala, a twice-baked bread loaf, used as a fermentation base, mixed with honey, date juice, and grain malt. It did not taste like a modern lager. It tasted like bread that had gone warm and sweet and alive, almost like a liquid meal. Workers on great building sites were paid in beer.
You're due for the day.
2 liters a day for a common laborer, 4 for a skilled one, 5 for a foreman. Beer was currency, calories, comfort, and community, all in a single clay cup, passed from one exhausted hand to the next, under an open sky. Beer was never just beer. It was food, work, comfort, trade, and ritual, all in one. It gave tired people a reason to sit down.
The choice
It gave the
is
day
clear.
a break. It gave the body a lift when clean water was not a sure thing, and the world was full of
choice.
dust, heat, and risk. When the tablets were translated, people expected philosophy, expected law, expected war, but instead found fermentation steps and flavor notes, which tells you everything true about people. Even now, when we lift a glass, we are close to them, closer than we think. Story 3. Moretum cheese, Rome, 100 BC. Rome, 100 years into the Common Era. A poet described a farmer waking before light, reaching for a stone bowl, and beginning to make Moretum. Moretum was not a feast dish. It was not served in halls. It was made fast, eaten fast, and then the day began without ceremony. The farmer crushed garlic, soft cheese, fresh herbs, oil, and salt together by hand, until the mixture held one color and one sharp living smell. It was the kind of food that leaves a mark on the fingers, the kind you can smell on a person from across a room. A Roman soldier carried it. A Roman farmer ate it before dawn. A Roman child probably hated the garlic and ate it anyway, because there was nothing else. Hunger does not care about preference or pride. That is the third shock. The old world was not always a palace feast. Most of it was small. Most of it was hands, not halls. Most of it was a person trying to make plain things taste good enough to keep going. The recipe survived because a poet wrote it down, not because it was grand, but because it was real, and real things tend to find their way. Story 4. Garum fish sauce. Rome and Greece. 400 BC. Garum came next, and garum was not polite. Rome and Greece poured fish into salt, left it to break down over months of slow heat, and then used the sharp, dark liquid on almost everything. It was their fish sauce, their soy sauce, their ketchup, their everything condiment, the flavor base that lived in every kitchen regardless of class or wealth.
We share the same
The smell
sauce.
of a garum factory was so strong that Roman law banned them from being built inside city walls. They had to stay outside, and yet garum was everywhere. Ships carried sealed jars of it across the Mediterranean, from Spain to Greece to Egypt, to the far edges of the known trading world. It was their ketchup, if ketchup could haunt a kitchen. The smell was brutal. The taste was power. Ships carried it. Hands counted it. Workers made it. Rich people wanted it. Every layer of life touched it. That is what food can do when it becomes culture. It can cross class. It can cross borders. It can cross centuries. Modern fish sauce from Southeast Asia is the closest living relative, and every time you pour it into a dish, Rome is briefly in the room. Story 5. Silphium flatbread. Carthage, 600 BC. Then there is Silphium, and Silphium is the one that hurts, because Silphium is gone, extinct, erased by demand before anyone thought to protect the supply. It grew only on one stretch of North African coast, near the city of Carthage, a wild plant that could not be farmed, moved, or copied. It tasted like nothing else, somewhere between garlic and fennel, but sharper, richer, more layered, and people loved it so much they paid silver for it. Carthaginian flatbread was made with Silphium, and it was not common food. It was luxury, the kind of thing that marked a table as important and careful. Then the demand outgrew the plant. The last known stalk of Silphium was sent to Rome as a curiosity, a gift, a final specimen, and then the species was simply gone forever. The bread remains in written records. The recipe survives in fragments, but one ingredient can never be sourced again, which makes it a ghost of a meal. That is what makes Silphium flatbread different from the others. It is a recipe with a hole in it, a song with one note permanently missing. Not every ancient recipe survives whole. Some survive as a shadow. Some survive as a smell in the mind. Some survive because someone wrote one line, and someone else dared to try it again. That is the wound. Here is what all 5 of these foods share. They were not made by chefs, not made for kings, not made to be remembered by history. They were made by tired people, ordinary people, people with dirty hands and loud kitchens, and no idea that anyone would ever care about their lunch. And that is the most moving thing in all of this. Food is the record that ordinary life left behind when everything else was lost. Monuments crumble, languages die, names vanish. But someone always remembered how much salt, how long to wait, how hot the fire needed to be, and that someone always told someone else. Every dish here is a message sent across time. Bread says we were here. Beer says we needed joy. Cheese says we needed comfort. Sauce says we needed flavor that could carry us. Flatbread says we could lose the plant and still remember the meal. That is the truth behind all of it. Food is not just survival. Food is a record. Food is the most ordinary kind of immortality. Every time you bake bread, you are continuing a chain that began in the desert 4,000 years ago. and has never once been broken by time. Every time you pour a sauce, every time you crush garlic, every time you leave dough to rise overnight, you are doing what the ancients did first. Not by accident, not by tribute, but because the knowledge passed through hands, through kitchens, through families, through cultures, and finally,
Keep stirring
without
until it's
fanfare,
smooth.
into
Now you
yours.
add the broth.
Food is the only kind of
Perfect.
history
You've
that
got
does
it.
not require a museum, a ticket, a guide, or a single word of explanation to be deeply felt. You feel it in your body. You feel it when a smell brings back a room, a person, a day you thought you had finished grieving long ago, but had not. That is what these 5 dishes prove. Not that people were smart, not that people were creative, but that people could not stop trying to feed each other. So the question is not what they ate 4,000 years ago. The question is what you are eating right now that someone 4,000 years from today will find, taste, reconstruct, and feel quietly, powerfully, unexpectedly connected to you.